Hello and welcome to Reportage. This is Daanish bin Nabi. Today I shall have a discussion about a recently released fiction book, The Fault Lines Within, published by the Gulshan Books. The book is about 31 fascinating short stories, and to discuss about it, I have with me the author herself, Hinana Burgess. We are recording this discussion at Gulshan Bookshop in Srinagar. Ms. Burgess, welcome to Reportage.
Thank you so much for having me.
Burgess, let me start by asking you, what inspired you to write these 31 fascinating short stories?
I think I can put it this way, that every incident, every episode that we come across as a writer, it grows into a writer. It's like, as I've written, that a short story, an incident is like a small seed, like a dormant seed. And it's the writer's job to take out a tree from that seed. And it's a very formidable task.
Burgess, why fiction? Why not non-fiction? What's so good about fiction?
People understand fiction more easily. It's easier for people to relate to. Even if you're getting a good message across, I think people would rather have like a short story rather than non-fiction.
But
it would sound like a newspaper. We have enough of that already.
But then there are also readers like me who do not like fiction at all.
Well, it's also up to the writer. It's also up to a person's choice whether you want to shape an incident in the form of a story, or you want to write non-fiction, fiction writer. And I'd like to stay that way.
And you would like to stay that way.
Yes.
The book carries a beautiful quote, and the quote is, "The places where we break are the places where we heal."
Yes.
I found this very insightful. What will it take for the humans to be more accepting it for the life?
I don't think life is something that you totally accept. I just don't believe in it that life, because life is something that flows. There will always be crests and troughs. There will always be good incidents and bad incidents. So you cannot exactly say that you take life as it comes. It's very hard. People do say it all the time. You might have seen it in a lot of quotes written or scrolled all over the internet, but it doesn't happen that way. How can you even say, like, for example, you get a sorrow. You're sorrowed about something, and then you say, no, I have to be more accepting of this sorrow. It's just not done. It won't happen. Even if you wish it would happen that way, it simply won't happen. Be accepting of life. I don't believe in it. I don't believe in this logic, because as a person, I've never been more accepting of life. I've just tried to go with the flow, but it doesn't happen. If you're sorrowed, you will be sorrowed. There's no other way that it will unfold. If you're happy, you will be happy.
How can we come out of this sorrow?
It depends on the type of sorrow that you're dealing with. There's a different way to deal with every sorrow. Sorrow cannot be classified as that I have this kind of sorrow or that kind of sorrow. It's a very generalized term when you say how do you deal with with sorrow per se. But if you are talking about a specific type of sorrow, well, then there are different ways to deal with each kind of them. As humans, we have to learn how to deal with them. That's it.
Can you name some methods of dealing with sorrow?
I have yet to publish a book. It's almost to be published. It's titled The Talib or the Seeker, where I deal
Talib and?
the Talib or the Seeker.
The Seeker, okay.
It talks about, it deals with the sorrow of heartbreak and bereavement.
Mm-hmm.
So I can say that for that, it's an entire book. I cannot just sum it up in 2 words or 2 sentences.
Sum it up for me in one sentence.
In one sentence, how to deal with bereavement. To feel the pain. Do not put a bar. Do not put a hurdle in front of you. Just flow with the pain. Just go with the pain. Let time heal it eventually.
And time will heal everything.
Yes.
We also see the relationship between a son and a mother. That's not going well. So how can we deal such type of sorrows?
If it's not going well, then it's not a sorrow per se. It's not sorrow. If it's not going well, if a relationship is not going well, it doesn't come.
It's sort of a depression.
It's a problem. It's an interrelationship problem. It's a relationship problem rather than to be put in a particular genre of sorrow.
Bharji's point taken. Let's move forward.
Mhm.
There is another intriguing line in the book. That's, aren't our internal conflicts enough? Why do we need a war to make them worse? This theme has been also discussed in chapter 3rd. Do you think that humans will ever stop glorifying the wars?
When you say glorifying a war, or when it's more like asking, will we ever stop celebrating sorrow? It's the same thing at the end, right? Do you think we celebrate sorrows? No, we don't celebrate a sorrow. It just happens as a byline of what we are going through. We don't celebrate anything like, we don't celebrate a war. I mean, I have seen some books, I've read some books, like one of my favorites, and Quiet Flows the Dawn. It's about the Russian Revolution, and then there's another book like Homer or Julius Caesar. These books talk about war, but then maybe I think that they've been written by men mostly. Most of the women won't. Most of the women would not want to romanticize war because a woman is a mother, she's a sister, she's a daughter.
So it's only the men who romanticize war.
Mostly. I said mostly. I used the word mostly. I did not say all of them, or not all of them, but mostly women would not want to romanticize war.
So it's actually the men.
Can be. Because I don't remember any book written by a woman author who has romanticized war. Maybe I might.
But there are men who have romanticized the war.
Yeah, there are.
Or not the women.
Not the women.
If we dive deep in your book, it's a very emotional book. All these 31 stories are very emotional. How, as an author, was the experience for you to write these 31 emotional stories? Was it exciting, or you got exhausted because of these 31 stories? And exhaustion, by exhaustion I mean the physical as well as the mental or the emotional exhaustion.
It was traumatic.
Romantic. Traumatic.
Yes.
Okay.
It's not easy for me as a person. What most of my friends would say, I'm an overthinker, what they call. But then I'll tell you one small incident that happened just in the morning, just today morning. As I was leaving my house, an old man came with a cart. He was dragging a cart, and then he was carrying a manhole lid in it. And he told me that the neighbors are not there. I got it for them, but can you please leave it with you until evening? When they come, they'll take it. And I said, okay. He said, it's very hard for me to take that big lid, iron lid, back and forth. So that would be a huge favor if you do that. Well, if you come to think of it, there's a story right there. There's a story right there about an old man who should not have been doing all this at his age. You would agree with me, right? And then...
So in all these small incidents,
yes,
there is a story.
I find a story. And like I said before, a small story, a small incident is a small seed. It's like a seed, a dormant seed. And as a writer, I have to take out the entire tree from that seed. Because the audience will not know the seed. They cannot see the seed, but they can see the tree. That's what my job as a writer is.
So do you think it's necessary for any author to be emotionally connected to his story?
If you're a relationship writer, if you delve deep into small incidents and you're looking for meaningful thoughts out of them, then yes, it's very important. It's very important.
To be emotionally connected to the story.
Yes. But if you're just writing a curriculum book here, like a syllabus, then it's a different thing altogether. For mathematics, you might not need to be connected. It all depends on the genre you're writing.
What would be your message for those readers who read non-fiction?
You read?
Non-fiction.
See,
how can they develop a taste for fiction?
It all depends on the author who is writing the fiction. If they feel a connection, they'll read it. For me, I do read non-fiction when I'm researching for my books. because it takes a lot of research to write a book. It's not just that you put a book on the for the reader on the platter and expect.
And how many years or months or weeks took you?
3 years.
You took 3 years to write this book.
It took me 3 years, and some of
Researched 3 years.
researched and wrote this book over a period of 3 years. There were some stories in the book like the angels must have cried. These are 3 stories based in war-torn Syria, and I had to research for 4 months about Aleppo, about the history. I have been to Syria, and the Syria that I have known was totally different from. So I felt
What we see today.
yeah, what happened in Aleppo. So it took me quite some research. And the other one, The Godless, a man's journey between faith and atheism, also took me 2 months. Actually, not exactly 2 months, more than that. It took me 4 to 5 months to get the hang of it, to get the feel. I mean, on one side, to get the feel how an atheist must feel like, and on the other extreme, how a faithful man might feel like. These are 2 extremes. So I can say that each story takes a lot of research.
And out of these 31 stories, which was the hardest story for you to write?
That's a tough one. But they were hard in different ways. The Angels Must Have Cried was hard because it dealt with a lot of trauma, war-torn trauma. It dealt with that. And then some were quite light-hearted also. I did not want the book to be very heavy. But the chapter in war-torn Syria, the chapter, The Sandy People and Paper Shores, that dealt with a child's trauma on separation from his mother in the war. That was the hardest story to write for me because I'm a mother also.
I can understand that. Burgess, my last question before we wind up this short discussion. How many unpublished books you have, and on how many books you are working?
Okay. I have 3 unpublished books, and I'm working on all 3. One of the biggest one is historical fiction based in Serbocratia, that Balkan. It happens around the turn of the 19th century, and it's almost 300 pages now. I'm working on that. And
That's your next book that will be coming?
no, it will take some more time because it's historical.
Which is the next one after these
The
fault
next
lines?
one hopefully will be The Talib or The Seeker. That I said it deals with bereavement. And
It would take you still some months to get it
a
published.
few more months.
A few more
It's
months.
in the publishing phase, yes. And then there is one more book, The Sustenance of Hate, which I don't want to disclose right now.
Completely fine.
And then, there is one more book dealing with mental health issues. It's been a hard journey.
All the 3 books are fiction.
4 actually. I
4?
forgot one of them.
Okay.
Yeah, the 4th one is it deals with mental health issues, and initially I thought I will publish it under a pseudonym because I think it was one of the hardest books to write
Why a pseudonym?
because people are not very accepting of mental health issues.
So why a pseudonym?
Let it come out.
Okay, so we are going to see 4 books from you in coming few years.
Yes.
Burgess, thank you for talking to Reportage. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Burgess. Please subscribe to our channel Reportage and press the bell icon to remain updated.